What if I told you there's a country in Central America where ancient civilizations carved their temples deep in the jungle, where over 200 tiny islands are scattered like jewels across the Caribbean, and where the second largest barrier reef in the entire world is quietly fighting for survival? The country is Belize, and chances are you've heard the name, but not the full story. On a map, it looks small, barely a speck compared to its neighbors. But when you look closer, Belize is a land of contradictions, secrets, and history that most people have never heard. It's a nation where the land itself has written the story of its people, from the rise of the Maya to colonial struggles to today's battle against climate change. And here's the twist. While the outside world mostly knows Belize as a tourist paradise, its geography and history reveal something much more complex, something fragile, endangered, and essential to understand. So let's dive in. Quick question for you before we go further. If you had to choose between exploring Belize's coral reef or climbing one of its jungle temples, which would you pick? Drop your answer in the comments. I'm curious how many of you are drawn to the sea versus the jungle. When most people think of Central America, they picture mountains, dense jungle, and maybe a stretch of coastline. Belize, however, refuses to fit neatly into that picture. Let's start with the coast. Stretching along the Caribbean Sea, Belize is lined with shallow waters and a protective necklace of coral reefs. At 180 miles long, this reef system isn't just large, it's the second largest in the world, right after Australia's Great Barrier Reef. It shelters over 200 islands, or cays as locals call them, each with its own character. Some are tiny, just enough space for a couple palm trees and a hammock. Others, like Ambergris Cay, have bustling towns, scuba diving hubs, and nightlife that rivals coastal Mexico. But geography here isn't just about beaches. Travel inland, and the land transforms. The north begins as flat plains and mangrove wetlands, but keep moving south, and the ground slowly lifts into the rugged Maya Mountains. At their peak, they rise to 3,699 feet, crowned by Victoria Peak in the Coxcomb Range. Between those mountains and the coastal plain lie rivers that twist and spill into waterfalls, creeks that carve through limestone, and lagoons that appear like mirrors scattered across the land. Here's the part that surprises many visitors. Belize isn't massive. In fact, the mainland is only 180 miles long and about 68 miles wide. That's smaller than some U.S. states. Yet within that small footprint, Belize packs in mangroves, tropical forests, mountains, savannas, islands, and coral reefs. It's like the country decided to sample every ecosystem it could fit. And let's not forget the cays themselves. Ambergris Cay, the largest, is about 25 miles long and over 4 miles wide. Its main town, San Pedro, is famous not just for its beaches, but also for its diving spots like the Great Blue Hole, a giant sinkhole that's one of the most photographed underwater sites on Earth. Then there's Cay Caulker, smaller and laid back, where just about 1,000 people live in a fishing community that feels frozen in time. This contrast between buzzing towns and untouched wilderness is at the heart of Belize's geography, and it's one reason why so many travelers call it two worlds in one. But geography doesn't exist in a vacuum. It shapes how people live, fight, and build their identities. And in Belize, the land has been steering human history for thousands of years. Before we dive into that history, I want to hear from you. Would you rather spend a night in the jungle of the Maya Mountains or camp on one of Belize's remote cayes under the stars? Let me know in the comments. I'll be reading them. Long before Belize was even called Belize, its geography shaped one of the most advanced civilizations in the ancient Americas, the Maya. The Maya didn't just pass through these forests, they flourished here. From about 1500 BCE to 1200 CE, Belize was dotted with cities, ceremonial centers, and trading routes. Places like Caracol, deep in the Cayo district, were once bustling hubs with pyramids, plazas, and astronomical observatories. Imagine stone temples rising above the rainforest canopy, built without iron tools, wheels, or beasts of burden. What made Belize special for the Maya wasn't just the land, it was the land's diversity. The coastal lagoons offered fishing and trade routes. The fertile river valleys gave them agriculture, from maize to cacao. And the limestone-rich soil made perfect building material for their pyramids. But history here isn't just triumph. By the 9th century, many Maya cities in Belize collapsed. Droughts, overpopulation, and political conflict played a role. Geography again shaped destiny. The same rivers that nourished crops dried up in some areas, and once rich soils became harder to sustain. Still, Maya communities survived and their descendants remain a vital part of Belize today. Then came the Europeans, first the Spanish, who claimed the territory but never fully controlled it. Then the British, who realized Belize's forests held something valuable, mahogany. This red gold became the backbone of colonial Belize, exported in massive quantities to Europe for luxury furniture. Logging shaped not just the economy but also the people. Many of today's Belizean Creole communities trace back to enslaved Africans brought here to work in the mahogany camps. And geography once again dictated events. The coastlines made Belize a strategic naval base, which pulled it into conflicts between Britain and Spain. In 1798, the famous Battle of St. George's Cay saw British settlers and enslaved workers defend the coast against a Spanish fleet, a moment Belizeans still celebrate today as a national holiday. Belize's history, then, isn't separate from its geography. The reefs, the rivers, the forests, they've always dictated who could thrive here, who could profit, and who would struggle. Quick pause. If you're fascinated by ancient civilizations like the Maya, hit the like button so I know to dive deeper into lost cities in future videos. But while the past is carved in stone, the present is being rewritten in ways that are far less stable. Because today, Belize faces new threats, and this time they come not from colonizers or rival empires, but from the planet itself. At first glance, Belize looks like paradise. White sand beaches, coral reefs teeming with life, dense jungles filled with jaguars, toucans, and howler monkeys. But look closer, and a darker picture emerges. The same geography that makes Belize unique also makes it fragile. Take the coral reef. Stretching for 180 miles, it shelters hundreds of species, from nurse sharks and sea turtles to tiny, colorful fish. But rising ocean temperatures are causing coral bleaching at alarming rates. What once looked like a vibrant underwater city is, in many places, turning ghostly white. Scientists warn that without urgent action, large parts of the reef could collapse within our lifetime. And it's not just the ocean. Inland, the forests of Belize, some of the most biologically diverse in the hemisphere, are under constant pressure. Illegal logging continues despite bans, as prized hardwoods like mahogany and rosewood are smuggled across borders. Meanwhile, agriculture expands deeper into the rainforest, burning away ecosystems that took centuries to form. Add climate change to the mix, and the threats multiply. Belize has been hit by stronger hurricanes, more frequent droughts, and devastating floods. In 2020, Hurricane Nana ripped across southern Belize, destroying crops and homes. Droughts in 2019 dried up rivers and left farmers struggling to water their fields. Forest fires, once rare, are now more common, wiping out Pine Ridge ecosystems in the Cayo district. And let's not forget the human cost. In coastal Belize City, rising sea levels and heavier rains are flooding neighborhoods. Families watch their homes take on water again and again. Inland, farmers lose entire harvests to either floods or droughts, pushing more families toward poverty. Belize's geography, once a blessing, is now a battleground. Real quick, I want your thoughts. Do you think climate change will hurt small countries like Belize more than big ones? Or do you think everyone's equally at risk? Share your view in the comments. I'll feature some of your answers in a future episode. But here's the thing. Belize isn't just standing by. The country is fighting back with bold moves. And what they're trying may be a model for the world. Every nation is shaped by its land. But in Belize, geography doesn't just shape culture. It decides survival. For generations, Belizeans have relied on the land and sea. Fishermen cast their nets along the reefs, farmers grow corn and beans in the valleys, and tourism brings in travelers eager to dive, hike, or wander through Maya ruins. On paper, this sounds like a balanced system, but cracks are showing. Let quote S start with the reef. Nearly 200,000 Belizeans, half the country's population, depend on it for food or income. When coral bleaches and fish populations collapse, that's not just an environmental problem. It's dinner plates going empty. It's families losing their livelihoods. Now shift inland. Agriculture accounts for a big slice of Belize's economy, but it's one of the most vulnerable sectors. When a hurricane wipes out banana plantations, or when droughts scorch cornfields in Orange Walk, it's not just crops that are lost. It's jobs, exports, and the fragile backbone of the economy. And tourism, it's booming, but also fragile. A bad hurricane season or a global pandemic can shut it down overnight. Locals who depend on guiding tours, running guest houses, or selling crafts suddenly find themselves without income. Then there's the issue nobody wants to talk about: poverty. While Belize has natural beauty beyond compare, nearly half of its population lives below the poverty line. Many rural communities struggle with limited access to healthcare, schools, or even clean water. When environmental crises strike, it's these same communities that suffer the most. And if that wasn't enough, corruption and mismanagement sometimes make things worse. Critics point out that illegal logging or unregulated land sales continue in spite of existing laws. Some accuse powerful interests of putting profits ahead of conservation. In other words, Belize's geography, once seen as endless abundance, is now testing its people. And those who feel the pressure most aren't tourists snapping photos on the beach. They're the Belizeans trying to make it through another hurricane season, another drought, another year of uncertainty. Quick interactive check. If you've ever seen a place where natural beauty exists right alongside poverty, type contrast in the comments. It's a reminder that paradise for some can mean hardship for others. But don't think Belize is giving up. Far from it. In fact, the country is becoming known worldwide for bold conservation moves that few expected from such a small nation. Belize may be small, but when it comes to protecting nature, it punches far above its weight. Take the Reef. After international warnings that it could be lost forever, Belize took decisive steps. In 2016, the government declared a moratorium on offshore oil drilling near the Reef, the first country in the world to make such a sweeping commitment. That move alone earned global praise, and it bought the Reef some time. Then came the Blue Bond. In 2021, Belize struck a groundbreaking deal. It restructured part of its national debt in exchange for committing to protect nearly 30% of its oceans. Imagine that, a country using financial leverage not just to pay bills, but to safeguard the sea. On land, efforts are just as ambitious. The Maya Mountains and Chicabal Forest Reserve are protected zones where jaguars roam and scarlet macaws still nest. Community groups patrol these areas, sometimes risking their lives to stop illegal loggers or poachers. It's not easy work, but it shows how deeply Belizeans care about their land. And let's talk about the people. Indigenous Maya communities have been leaders in sustainable farming, teaching practices that work with the land instead of against it. Local NGOs run programs to restore mangroves, protect manatees, and replant damaged reefs with coral nurseries. Even school kids get involved, learning early that their future depends on protecting the ecosystems around them. Of course, challenges remain. Enforcement isn't perfect, and money is always tight. But compared to many larger, wealthier countries, Belize is showing remarkable initiative. It's proving that size doesn't dictate impact, commitment does. Here's something to think about. If every country took just one step like Belize's Reef Moratorium or Blue Bond, how different would the planet look? Drop your take in the comments. I'd love to know if you think other nations will follow Belize's lead. Still, the question hangs, are these efforts enough? Or is Belize racing against time, trying to save treasures that may already be slipping away? So, what happens if Belize can't keep up this fight? The answer is bigger than just one small country. If the coral reef continues to bleach and break down, it won't just mean fewer fish. It means coastal villages could lose their natural barrier against storms. Homes, schools, and businesses along the shorelines would be left exposed to hurricanes that grow stronger every year. If the rainforests fall to deforestation and wildfires, it won't just mean fewer trees. It means the disappearance of species found nowhere else. The jaguar, the tapir, the scarlet macaw, icons of Belize, could fade from reality into memory. And remember, those forests don't just belong to Belize. They're part of the lungs of the planet. If poverty deepens because climate shocks keep wiping out farms and fisheries, it won't just mean economic struggle. It means young Belizeans may be forced to leave, seeking futures abroad. What happens to a nation's identity when its people feel they must go elsewhere to survive? In short, what's at stake in Belize is not just geography, it's culture, its identity, its survival. Yet there's also another possibility. If Belize succeeds, if the reef thrives, if the forests remain intact, and if its people can build a sustainable future, then Belize becomes a model for the world. Proof that even small nations can stand up, fight back, and protect what matters most. Let me ask you directly, do you think Belize will be remembered as the country that lost its treasures, or the one that proved the world wrong? Comment your prediction. I'm curious which side you're on. Belize is not just another dot on the map of Central America. It's a place where geography shaped history, where history continues to shape identity, and where identity is now tested by forces bigger than borders. From the towering temples of the Maya to the endless blue of the Caribbean, Belize's story is a reminder that beauty and fragility often go hand in hand. Its coral reefs are breathtaking, but they're also vulnerable. Its forests are rich, but they're also under siege. Its people are resilient, but they're also stretched thin. And here's the real takeaway. What happens in Belize isn't just about Belize. Because if a small nation with limited resources can fight for its environment and culture, what excuse do larger nations have for sitting back? So the next time you hear the word Belize, I hope you don't just think of sandy beaches and vacation photos. I hope you think of its past, its people, and the urgent choices shaping its future. Final question. If you learned something new today, hit that like button. It really helps. And tell me in the comments, what surprised you most about Belize, its geography, its history, or its fight to survive? I'll be replying to your answers because Belize's story is far from over. And maybe, just maybe, it's the story that could inspire us all.